Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Now, the first thing I want to do for you here is I'd like to play a satellite animation from Monday. And as we play this, I really want you to be paying attention to these winds blowing these clouds right here. So let's pause it right as the sun was setting here. There we go. Now, if we just walk this back, you can notice that the trajectory of those winds is largely coming out the Baja, curling through Texas, and then running almost straight west to east all the way to the Carolinas. And what these winds are, what they're a part of, at least what they're blowing those clouds around and showing us, is that there still remains a very large subtropical ridge sitting in this area. And that's going to be one of the most important things about this upcoming pattern, because turn your attention to the west. You see how the flow's diving in like this and splitting right here across the mountains? That's going to be setting up an incredibly active pattern there. So what we're going to see over the next 24 hours or so, this is the latest update from the National Weather Service on their all-hazards weather map very early here in the morning on Tuesday. And whereas you see winter storm warnings, high wind warnings, probably there will be the issuance of blizzard warnings for this next system that's coming out of the Rocky Mountains here. We're going to be dealing with the opposite of it. Wait until you see the temperatures being forecast for later this week. I'm sure you've already noticed them, but we're going to be approaching some record high temperatures here. And unfortunately, it's going to be dry to start off. So the risk across North Carolina with this particular special weather statement here is that we have the risk for fires today. And here's why. If you look at where the winds will be doing this afternoon on Tuesday, very strong and out of the west. And what's going to be going on at that same time is that our relative humidities on Tuesday afternoon will be down there in the 20 to 30% range for most of the state. So it's just a point to say here that we do have the risk given the winds are out of the west, they're very dry, and it's going to be getting very, very warm in this pattern. Now, while all of this is going on, the rest of the country is going to get hammered with big-time precipitation and ice storm that could potentially stretch from parts of Nebraska all the way over to Detroit and north of it, and that's what we're talking about here, some very heavy snow. Now, I'll show you what's going on in the west in a few moments, but I just want to make you see that this particular pattern is putting down snow on top of very, very dry ground. This is an important snowfall event. We need to see how much of this snow actually gets here and how much liquid is in it, because right now the National Weather Service out of Minneapolis is calling for over 2 feet of snow possible with this next system. Now, while all of that's going on, we have to be asking ourselves one big question about this pattern. All right, the dominance of this southeast ridge since mid-January is just undeniable. It just keeps coming back into this area. What will be changing in this pattern is the ridge that had pushed its way all the way to the west coast, it's on its way back to the west. So the flow is going to come over this ridge here and then dive into the western United States, a bit different from where it's been. But when I look out longer range, I think the most key component to my forecast right now is the persistence of the southeastern United States ridge. So we need to know what that means for temperature and precipitation as we go forward in this forecast. Now, what's getting this all set up is the fact that there's quite a bit of speed being picked up right here in the jet stream. And the warm water to the south versus the very cold conditions over the Bering Sea and the Chukchi Sea is going to send the jet into deeper troughs over the west. Now, automatically when that occurs, we're going to see more of what we've been seeing, ridges building in this area. So the flow comes in and goes right over the top of it like that. We need to know what that's going to mean for our precipitation pattern, because I can give you a live example of it. This is this morning here on Tuesday. You can see the split, see it coming here and splitting one, north and south, running up, grabbing extra momentum, diving into the west. But here's that flow around that large subtropical ridge. And that particular setup is what's going to be driving this pattern going forward. Because as I go out there and I look top down, so this is looking right on the North Pole, we're going to watch this ridge stay put or move west. And we're going to see the troughs not able to penetrate through this ridge right down here. Now, I know they don't look as strong, do they? Like this one does not look nearly as strong as that one. But this, believe it or not, is the more dominant feature. This ridge right here. So here you go. This is playing through Tuesday into Wednesday of this week. That's when the big winter storm goes right over the top of Minneapolis. And look what stays over here. Large, dominant ridge. Going into this weekend, into early next week, what do we see? Ridge. Playing out here now into the end of February and the start of March, we see three things: ridge, ridge, ridge. So the atmosphere goes flowing around over the top of it just like that. And without a big blocking high moving from Europe to setting up here over like Ontario and Quebec, we have no chance at bringing in sustained cold air. We have no chance at delivering a big East Coast cyclone that can deliver snow this time of year. And what it appears to be is that this pattern is going to set us up for more mild weather than anything else. So let's go into the high-res models. We'll pick this up at 9 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. And as I play through the week, all the action's west. That's getting out there to Tuesday and Wednesday. Here's the ice storm I mentioned, the heavy snow on the northern side, which you've already seen the forecast for. And what do we see mostly through North Carolina? Well, drier conditions to start, a little bit windy to start, and overall, nothing, no precip. So this system fails to bring a front through us. We then go out there looking for the next few systems to do our multi-model analysis, GFS left, European right. So we've already seen through the big system right there, that one. Now, as this continues to play forward, notice how weak the front is as it comes over North Carolina. It's not even there in the models. And that's because right now, as these systems lift, they just don't maintain the strong frontal boundary to deliver the moisture to us. So we go back west and we watch the next system come out. Now, there is a chance for some moisture later on this weekend. So both models, you notice they've got this area right in through here of wetter conditions. And what's going on here is that as one system leaves, there's going to be this upper level ridge like we've been talking about sitting and spinning here. And the flow is going to come around it and possibly have enough moisture in it to deliver some weekend precipitation. But it's not as though it's heavy. See that? That's rocking back and forth on Saturday and Sunday. And I like to look over here at the European just to give you my own preference. So what happens is the next system comes out in the Midwest. This is next Monday into Tuesday. And just like the other systems, because it pulls through the Great Lakes and toward Ontario and Quebec, the front is weaker as it comes over us. And then it affects each of these next few systems just doesn't pack the punch. So where is it going to be? Well, this is a map now showing you the next 10 days of total accumulated snow. We're just looking at this for a pattern. Very heavy snowing through here. The west, the Sierra Nevada may pick up 1 to 4 feet. The Cascades 1 to 2 feet. The Central Rockies maybe 6 to 20 plus inches of snow. This is outstanding for the western snowpack buildup. But what this will likely reinforce going into spring is more troughs diving here and reinforcement of the subtropical ridge, therefore sending systems like this as we approach March. Now, we're in a snow deficit. I mean, in fact, not just North Carolina, the Appalachian Mountains, but look into New England. This whole region is well below normal on snow so far this year. And we can largely blame that on that large subtropical ridge. So who's getting the moisture over the next 10 days? This map is a 10-day precipitation map. Pause it. You can have a close look. And overall, we see across North Carolina a lot of these next few systems only capable of putting down a few tenths of an inch, maybe up to a half inch or 3/4 of an inch. The wettest conditions right along the coast. So what does that look like when you compare it to average? This is what it looks like. That's the next 10 days in terms of precipitation anomalies. And now the southeastern ridge really just shows its presence in through here. It's not as though it's completely dry. You saw when we saw some precip coming in this weekend. But overall, this particular pattern is just not set up to deliver. But there are places that are getting moisture that we need to be watching, specifically the Midwest. And the reason why I'm talking about the Midwest is that I mentioned this to you before. There is still drought at 40 inches. This is soil moisture at 40 inches. And fall's drought of 2022 is still there underneath the snow that's already fallen and the snow that's coming. Underneath the rain that's even coming. We're still drier here, down deep. So we need to be watching these next few systems because they're going to be critical to how this moisture is going to recover going into early spring. Now, let's reiterate the main facts here. This is with the presence of that southeastern ridges all the way out there to the beginning of March. It's still there. But the split is moving away from the west coast now to possibly be, well, if we just kind of draw it here, coming off of Asia, splitting here and here, then coming back together, there's the subtropical branch. And that's what's going to keep us overall mild, but possibly into week 2 seeing more normal precipitation. So this is now almost the first full week of March that's represented here in this precipitation anomaly map. And the activity from that subtropical jet running over the ridge, well, as the ridge flexes and moves north, we're drier and warmer. As it dips south and weakens, we get chances for precip. But the wettest conditions are over the Midwest and the West. Now, temperatures. This is what things have looked like since the beginning of the year. Two of their climate reporting districts in the northeastern side of North Carolina are having a top 10 warmest start to any year, and the rest of the states really having a top 15. Very mild, and go up to the Great Lakes, it's even more mild. In fact, the Great Lakes right now are less than 10% covered in ice. That's near record low, or it might be a record low for this time of year. New England's been very, very mild as well. As we look out over the next several days, take a look at this. I know I've shown you this several times, but if you go to my main website, ag-wx.com, agweather.com, ag-wx.com, you can put in any city over here on the right. Now, I like to just choose Raleigh because it's in the center of the state. Let's talk about it. So we go to Raleigh, North Carolina. Its index number is 47. Go ahead and click the submit button, and it just generated your own custom forecast. Now, notice the temperatures this week. 63, 72, 76 Thursday, 88. I'll show you that in a few seconds. When's our next decent chance at some precip? Saturday. See it there? But just so you see this, over the next 7 days, we're going to be on average 18 degrees warmer than normal. And if you slide down, you're going to see some other stuff. We're doing great on precip so far. We're 107%. But if you look at your year-to-date temperatures, notice that we have spent way more time above normal with respect to temperatures because of that southeast ridge than anything else. And our year-to-date GDDs, we're at the top of the 20-year envelope at 233 accumulated so far. Now, we got to be careful with this because we still have several days by which our temperatures could dip back below freezing between now and through March and early April. In fact, we do get frosts in Raleigh into mid-April, so we need to be aware of that. But we're already picking up quite a bit of heat, and this is what the temperatures are going to be doing here. Now, as we're really recording this on late Monday night, so let's get to Tuesday. There we go. 60s, approaching 70. There's 70s on Wednesday. And as we get into Thursday, we may be pushing 90 degrees Fahrenheit in parts of North Carolina. While it's 90 here, struggling to get above -5 in Montana. Now, that cooler air does get to us. That's Friday, and by Saturday, yeah, high of 54 in Raleigh, it's going to be cooler, but just rebounds right back again. So from Saturday into Sunday, we warm back up again. And that seems to be the way this pattern is going to continue to go, because the coldest air on the planet has been pushed here over parts of the Canadian prairie, over the west. It's not in Siberia. It's not in Europe. It's really not even over the Arctic. It's here. And if we just continue to push the split flow back, what's going to do is it's going to branch like this and like this, come over the top and dive. Subtropical branch meets up with it, runs right over the ridge. So we should expect to continue to see that until this pattern advertises some sort of a change. Now, before I go away from this, I do want to make a comment about Argentina. I'm sure many of you heard that in Argentina over the weekend on Saturday morning there was some patchy frost. It did impact both the corn and soybean crops down there, more soybeans than I've heard from corn. It was hyper-local. It wasn't widespread. But the temperatures there are already set to rebound, to go back up into in Fahrenheit, up into the 80s and 90s by the end of this week. Very mild air coming back in. So pretty big yo-yo swing here of temperatures. Now back to the U.S. 5-day sliding window of our temperature anomalies, and you can see the dominance of the southeast ridge. Now we've got big questions about that southeast ridge. How long does it hang on? Do we continue to see this through spring, and is it there in summer? We don't want to see it lasting through summer. If it lasts into summer, we're starting to talk about the risk of substantial drought development. But right now, we're just looking at it through spring. The longer range outlook for precipitation is actually more favorable. There's some suggestion that this ridge, which is kind of sitting here, could migrate to be more over the Gulf of Mexico. And if it did that, that would give us better chances at seeing better precipitation in the month of March. And the model continued to stay wetter. What I don't agree with is its temperature forecast. You see, there's no way we're going to be seeing more cooler days than warmer days if the southeast ridge dominates. And you say, well, what would make you go against it? Well, not the MJO. I don't see that teleconnection being very strong right now. I see persistence as the wisest choice in the forecast. So I think that the model's overdone the cooler here, and I can back that up with the forecast from the CFSV2. Because out here looking at that second and third week of March, it's trying to keep more of that southeastern ridge in place and keep more mild conditions around. Now to finish this one up, I want to tell you what the latest update is on La Nina. This is going to be important for upcoming summer temperatures. This is going to be important for upcoming hurricane season. La Nina continues to fade. Very strong signals that it is out. And the newest data released today shows us that through spring will be up to a 95% chance to be in INSO neutral conditions and maybe by midsummer, better than a 60% chance of seeing El Nino conditions return. Still think it's too aggressive. I think the reality is that we're going to see more of this signal of El Nino returning late summer into fall, which will be right in time for the hurricane season. But because of that transition, giving you any sort of a sense of a summer forecast right now is not in the cards. Just don't have it. I got to see more information. Last thing I want to finish up with, let's go and turn this to South America here real quick. I want to show you precipitation 15-day anomaly. We're drier again in Argentina, but very wet in central Brazil. And the crop that's coming out of Brazil is very large for soybeans, and safrinha corn's getting planted behind it. But the wet conditions in central Brazil need to be watched carefully, as it might just impact how harvest continues to progress towards the south. So I'll wrap it up there. Have a good week. I'll talk to you again next Monday. Thanks.